to a bit of a stressful day today because my front door decided to become completely jammed, and so currently the locksmith is dealing with that, and hopefully I'll have a working door again before long. That was rather stressful, and also there was a thunderstorm this morning. We didn't need a thunderstorm because it's been so very hot lately. It hasn't actually really cleared the air at all. It's still very humid outside. I don't like thunderstorms, but we did need one. We actually probably need another one, actually, because it's still very humid outside. So I didn't go out for as long as I normally do for my walk today, just because stressful things happening, and it just felt rather humid out. It didn't feel very nice outside. So as I was saying, I attended recently an Autism partnership board, which meets every 6 weeks or so, all online at present. It used to be, before COVID, it was obviously face-to-face, but now it's online, which is good for me, obviously. And some things were raised there. In actual fact, with regards to the neurodiversity stuff, I do feel in my old age I'm actually getting rather more brazen in my attitude against it, whereas when I was younger maybe I was a bit more meek and quiet and maybe didn't kind of speak out against these things so much. I think with age I'm just getting a bit more vocal in my opinions, like I'm not holding back as much. That might just be one positive about getting older, and there aren't many. I do think as you get older maybe you do become a slightly more confident in expressing your opinions than maybe you were when you were younger, so maybe that's a good sign. But anyway, at the Autism Partnership Board, one of the presentations was about, I think that my phone's gone. Yeah, one of the presentations was about, so it was to do with social care assessments, and they're moving away from what a sort of deficits-based approach towards what they call a strengths-based approach. So when they're assessing people for social care, they're now focusing not so much on what the person can't do, but on what the person can do. Sort of looking at how the person can do things for themselves, what areas of their life is working well, what areas of their life they can do for themselves without support, and whether or not they can withdraw support in certain areas if a person is doing well, sort of thing. Seeing whether or not the person can get support from other areas such as technology, friends and family, and things like that, as opposed to statutory services. The way this presentation was put forward sounded all very kind of, I don't know, how could you possibly oppose it sort of thing. And the person doing the presentation, he seemed a very nice chap, obviously just doing his job, he seemed very nice. But obviously I do have very grave reservations about this whole strengths-based approach. I do feel that it is quite, I actually think it's code, Orwellian double speak, for cuts, basically. It's code for cuts. Now that might be the cynic in me, and I am quite cynical by nature, but I can't help but see an ulterior motive here. I do feel there's an ulterior motive at work. How could you possibly oppose, in theory, a strengths-based approach? But actually, there are real issues. Indeed, one person at the group brought forth one of these issues, which she actually used to support people with learning disabilities, not autism, but learning disabilities. She herself is autistic, but she used to support people with learning disabilities. And one person that she supported had one of these strengths-based assessments, and the conclusion of the assessment was that she was doing so well in one area, or they thought that in one area was maybe a strength, that she didn't actually need any more support in that area, so her support was cut, and consequently she then ended up losing 6 stone in weight. So this goes to show how a strengths-based approach can actually end up meaning that a person ends up losing support, because it's very much based upon it's very much based upon what the person can do, which sounds great in theory, but when you actually look at it closer, you see that really there is an ulterior motive here, and what they're really trying to do is roll back the support. I actually put forward that point, not in such explicit language, you have to tread carefully, but I did, in as many words, kind of say that I did feel that they were trying to cut things back. And I do feel that this is where maybe the neurodiversity paradigm is unfortunately infiltrating the very highest branches of the social care system, and it might, this might not be the neurodiversity advocates' original intention. It might just be that this is being misappropriated by people at the higher branches of the social care system. Seeing a neurodiversity paradigm is very much, we need to move away from this medical language and towards the social model, which sound, again, at first glance, you might think, that's all positive and progressive, and what's wrong with that? But again, it's like so much in society, when it looks at first glance to be positive, but it's all spin and it's Orwellian double speak, and it never really means what you think it means on the surface. It's a bit like the way people use the word freedom, and what does that mean? It can mean so many different things depending on who you ask, right? It's a positive word, but what does it actually mean when you look at it? Similar sort of thing. Language is slippery. It all depends on who's using a language, really, what it means. So as I said, I did tread carefully because I didn't want to offend anyone, bearing in mind this was a meeting with lots of stakeholders, but I did explain that I was not really very happy with the strengths-based approach. What I should have said is actually we should have a human-based approach, because a human-based approach would look at the whole person, because it doesn't make sense to kind of separate the person into strengths or deficits, because a person is made up of all of those. That's what makes a human being, both strengths and weaknesses. We're not made up just of one or the other, so a human-based approach surely would have been preferable. I should have said that, but I didn't think to say that at the time. Afterwards I thought, maybe that's what I should have said. But yes, and I also attended afterwards a subgroup of the Autism Partnership Board, which was looking at how health and social care can be better joined together. And this we're trying to look at how mental health services can be made more autism friendly, but also how we can reduce waiting times for autism assessments, because currently waiting times are really, really, really long. When I got diagnosed back in 2008, I only had to wait less than a year, I think it was, which actually at the time was not too bad. And I had support in the meantime as well. I was supported in the meantime. It felt like a long time to wait, but less than a year, by today's standards, that's good. People are now having to wait 3-4 years or more. The questions need to be asked as to why this is. There are many different factors involved. One, of course, is the pandemic. Obviously, there's been a massive backlog because during the pandemic, lots of people assessments were deferred because of the pandemic. Another factor, of course, is increased awareness and recognition of autism. We've got a lot more women coming forward for assessment now, a lot more women. In West Sussex, there's a traffic light system. I don't know whether this is the case in all parts of the UK, but there's a traffic light system, red, amber, and green, I think it is. So if you're in red, that's the highest need. If you're in amber, that's medium need. And if you're in, that's right. If you're red, you're in highest need. If you're amber, you've got medium need. And if you're green, you've got lowest needs. And they prioritise those who are red for assessment. So they get assessed the soonest, and they're the ones who are often in hospital or really acute mental health situations. whereas amber would be people who've got a significant need, maybe are accessing mental health services, or they really need a diagnosis for that, to get support and things like that. I guess I would be an amber if I was going forward for it now, but I don't think I had a traffic light system when I went for my assessment. Because when I went for my assessment, the adult diagnosis service has only just been set up, and I was right at the front of the queue anyway, because I was one of the first people to go into that service. I was quite lucky in that respect, I suppose. There wasn't really a waiting list back then, so I didn't have to wait too long. And then green, I guess, would be for those who don't really have great support needs at all, and they're going to have to wait the longest. I did ask, because I was interested to find out what percentage of people are in green versus amber and red, because that would be quite interesting to find out how many people are coming forward who don't really have a significant support need who are in green, because this would, I don't know, this would just be quite interesting. And obviously, because of the neurodiversity aspect, we are now seeing a lot of people coming forward for assessment who aren't really clinically significantly impaired, getting assessed and diagnosed. I've talked about this elsewhere, so I'm not going to talk about it in detail now, but obviously there are issues, complex issues around this, both pros and cons, and it's a whole philosophy there about where do we draw the line with autism. But I would be interested to know what the percentages are. So thank you for watching.